The Galapagos Islands. Darwin's playground, where evolution went ham. No predators, no rivals, infinite yummy food. The Galapagos land Iguanacanalophus subcristatus goes from cute hatchling to mini Godzilla. Mini 1.5 meters long and 45 kilos 99 pounds. Compared to their 40-gram mainland kin, that's over 1,000 times bigger. But how did they get that way? Well, when the Galapagos split from the mainland, 30 species arrived, mostly finches and iguanas. Soon, 2 new species emerged. See, life on the Galapagos was easier. Food was everywhere, so they grew bigger, slower, and bulkier. But don't think they're lazy. They evolved different snouts to exploit every food source. And get this, most are herbivores, yet have powerful jaws for cracking tough shells and seeds. The Galapagos marine iguana Amblyrhynchus crater is the only modern lizard that can swim underwater. How do we know? 'Cause they got gills. Okay, not really. They have. But they do have grooved tongues perfect for slurping up fish and a flat tail like a paddle for steering in the water. These guys grow up to 2 meters long and weigh around 6 kilograms. Meanwhile, their mainland cousins are barely 5 centimeters long and weigh less than 2 grams. For scale, if mainland iguanas grew up to match the marine iguanas, they'd be nearly 5 times larger than blue whales. That's the power of the island gigantism effect. In short, no predators. Lots of food, fewer resources means grow big or die trying. But what about giant insects? They're next. Giants of the air. Insects on steroids. On islands, it's not just lizards that get big. Insects join the party too. Take the Wetadinacrita heteracantha from New Zealand. They're the heaviest insects on Earth, hitting 70 grams and 17 centimeters long. That's like 20 of your average house cricket. What's behind this massive makeover? Again, no predators. On the mainland, Weta ancestors were small, flightless crickets targeted by birds, spiders, and frogs. But on Stewart Island, safe from predators, they grew, growing, until boom, a new species. The tusked Weta. Weta are relatives of the common cricket, but they're also 35 times heavier. Like if crickets could grow like Weta, a katydid would weigh 226 grams, and a praying mantis could snap its prey like twigs. Speaking of twigs, take the stick insect. Its scientific name, Phasma nyctiphanes, verticorona. Yep, it's a mouthful, but trust me, it's worth it. These insects are 56 centimeters long and 12 centimeters wide. Imagine walking in the woods and spotting one camouflaged on a leaf. Would legit look like the branch it's sitting on. The scariest part, they can mimic the swaying of leaves in the wind. So not only are they hard to spot, but once you do, they blend in perfectly. But it's not all about hiding. On small Pacific islands, like Samoa and Tonga, you'll find giant stick insects. In fact, the Samoan stick insect, Dryocosylus australis, is the world's longest bug, reaching 56.7 centimeters. If this thing had wings, it'd be a contender for the title of largest flying insect. But remember, insects don't live forever. On Hawaii's Molokai, an ancient relative of the stick insect known as the Archosparathropus gigas, lived between 1 million and 6 million years ago. Back then, it ruled as the world's largest known arthropod. By largest, I mean massive, 58 centimeters long and weighing 40 grams. To put that in perspective, it's like if a cockroach could grow the size of a small dog. Now that's terrifying. But sadly, this behemoth met its match when humans arrived carrying rats, mosquitoes, and habitat destruction. Today, it's extinct. The same fate befell Diphobacter chani, aka the giant Jerusalem cricket or the potato bug. It lived in Southern California and reached lengths of 35 centimeters. Talk about a creepy, crawly nightmare, the Atlas moth. Nature's winged behemoth. Now let's turn our attention to another winged menace. The Atlas moth, Atticus atlas. If you're a fan of Lord of the Rings, you might recognize this guy from the cave troll scene. Yeah, it looks like Gandalf took a wrong turn and stumbled into a moth convention. But seriously, check out the size of these things. They've got a wingspan of 25 centimeters and can weigh a whopping 115 grams. Just imagine one of these bad boys fluttering around your head as you camp out. Sweet dreams, right? These megamoths live in South Asia, Southeast Asia, and Oceania, just in case you wanted to pack your bags and go searching for one. These nocturnal creatures spend their days hiding in burrows they dig with their massive mandibles. Then when the sun goes down, they come out to play. Just kidding. They're more into eating leaves than partying. But hey, that's no fun. So here's another fact. Atlas moth caterpillars are a delicacy in some parts of Asia. People eat them as sashimi or grilled. Sounds like a recipe for disaster. If anyone ever tries to serve you a plate of these wrigglers, I'd politely decline. And let's just say I'm not interested in joining the caterpillar fan club. Thanks, but no thanks. The coconut crab. Mr. Universe of the Indian Ocean. Now let's wrap it up with the ultimate heavyweight champ. The coconut crab Crossachera canaria. These massive crustaceans are found in the Indian Ocean from East Africa to the Arabian Peninsula, the Maldives, Seychelles, and Sri Lanka. I bet you didn't even know crabs could get that big. And there you have it, folks. It's from rats the size of dogs to moths that put the fear of God into campers. Today we're looking at fossils found in the Geneseo Basin in western New York State. In the early 1800s, there was quite a bit of interest in exploring the Genesee River for natural gas. In the process, they uncovered a bog filled with bones. People thought it was a swamp from the Great Flood described in the Bible. Some folks even claimed to see dinosaurs in the muck. But these bones were, of course, much older than the biblical story allowed for. Still, this fossil site would be an important one in American paleontology, because it helped turn the tide on people who still believed that fossils could not be thousands or hundreds of millions of years old. The bog itself is actually an ancient lake deposit that formed around 18 million years ago, and at the time was considered the richest fossil deposit in the world. The bones came from a large swamp forest similar to the Florida Everglades, and unlike most bogs, these fossils weren't just from plants. They had a lot of vertebrates. Fossils found here included mastodons, oreodonts, turtles, crocodiles, sharks, fish, and whales. Some of these animals were new to science, and because of how well preserved they were, artists got to work right away imagining what they might have looked like. Among the best preserved was a large flying reptile called Basilosaurus, which literally means whale lizard. It was one of the first animals classified as a mosasaur, a group that lived between 82 and 66 million years ago and got their name because they were basically the monsters of the ancient seas. You may have seen the famous specimen at the Smithsonian. But did you know that over 400 specimens have been found all over the world? The fossil of a skull discovered in the Geneseo area back in 1835 was originally sent to Harvard University, but somehow it was lost and didn't resurface until 2001. Now the rest of the skeleton was found in 1866 in Alabama, so they knew what kind of animal it was. When it was rediscovered, scientists used this specimen to help establish the order of Mosasauria. That's why it's such a big deal. Mosasaurus had a narrow, pointed head and jaws full of sharp teeth, big eyes and flippers instead of legs. Imagine a mix between a crocodile and a shark. Their bodies were long and snake-like, but they had a tail like a fish. Paleontologists think that they were apex predators, chasing after schools of fish and eating anything they could catch. They also had a very impressive range, being found in what's now the Atlantic Ocean from North and South America to Europe and Western Asia and Africa. But they're not the only interesting thing that comes from the bog. There was also a relative of the whale with an incredibly bizarre body shape. Ambulocetus means walking whale, and it definitely earned its name. Ambulocetus natans literally means swimming ambulocetus. It was about 12 meters long and weighed more than 30 tons. That makes it larger than most mosasaurs. It ate pretty much everything it wanted and nothing really ate them. Not even the megalodon dared go after a mosasaur. One day, while recording an episode of Digging Up the Past, Josh and I were poking around in a rock hoping to find something cool. We ended up finding a couple of small bone fragments. Though we couldn't identify them right away, there was something special about them. There was a texture to the bone that we hadn't seen before. These bones were chalky and felt almost like sandpaper. We took our finds home and sanded them down. After a couple of hours, we finally saw what we were looking at. This fossil was from a type of whale. We had no idea at the time, but these were some of our very first Basilosaurus fossils. From the same rock, we found a couple of other small bones and a piece of jaw with teeth. These jaws were different from the smooth ones we had found before. These were rough and pitted. We figured out that we had found a piece of upper jawbone and teeth from a basilosaur. I put together the pieces of jawbone and realized they fit perfectly onto the teeth. Putting the pieces together, we made a plaster jacket to protect the fossil. Then we took it to a lab to get scanned. When the scans came back, we got to see the three-dimensional model of the skull. It was crazy that we had found such a huge part of a mosasaur skeleton. But we still needed to clean the bones up to see if there was anything else. We carefully brushed off the rock, revealing a hole in the skull where a ligament attached. This is the same ligament that connects the upper jaw to the rest of the skull in modern snakes, and is key to opening and closing their mouths. Because of the way this ligament works, you can't gape too wide or the bones will come apart. Mosasaurs would have bitten their food and then sucked it in. Similar to today's snakes, this ligament would have worked perfectly for catching slippery fish, because the skull wasn't split down the middle. This was likely an immature individual. We'll never know exactly how old it was, but we think that it was probably less than 10 years old, based on the sutures between the bones and the back of the skull. We also found a vertebra. Using the dimensions of the skull and the vertebra, we estimate that the total length of this animal would have been between 7 and 8 meters long. That makes it one of the largest animals known from the Genesee Formation. What's really special about this find is that it's the first new specimen of Basilosaurus from the Greenaways Basin in more than 150 years. Back in the early 1800s, everyone was excited about fossils, but they didn't understand half of what they were looking at. Today, there's a team of paleontologists working on a single fossil, and that's why it took us so long to figure out what we had found. Not only does this find show that Basilosaurus grew faster than we previously thought, but it also shows that they lived in the Genesee Basin longer than we thought. We don't know what caused them to go extinct, but maybe someday we'll find out. You can find more information about the mosasaur in the description below. Thanks to those of you who support our work. If you want to learn more about fossils like these, please consider supporting us. It's easy to think of evolution as a slow process because we all still stuck with our two-legged bodies and opposable thumbs. But change has happened and continues to happen. It's happening right now. Take the kakapo, for example. It's a flightless parrot that's 3 kilos and 64 centimeters tall. That's the size of a human torso. Flightless birds often end up evolving into giants, which is weird. Usually when a bird loses the ability to fly, its body shapeshifts to conserve energy. But with the kakapo, selective pressures seem to favor larger body sizes. Males usually weigh twice as much as females. They use a Lex system for mating. So males compete for territory, and females can choose their mate. Larger males are more successful at both. Their size lets them fight off rivals and attracts potential partners. Females likely prefer bigger males because it signals good genes and strength. Being stronger means a male can defend his burrow and protect his chick. Most birds sing to attract mates, but kakapos make noises that sound like snoring, hissing, belching, and booming. Boom, boom, they call it. It lasts anywhere from 6 to 8 hours every night for up to 4 months. That's a long time to sing. But if you want to attract a female, you gotta put in the work. Boom boom is also a territorial call, letting other males know to stay away. The kakapo releases the air from its gular pouch, a sac under its chin. They inflate it like a balloon, stretching out the thin walls until they rupture. That popping sound is what produces the boom. Boom boom. Kakapo tend to live in lowland forests near the coast. They dig burrows using their strong beaks, claws, and feet. And they're nocturnal. They sleep during the day, they eat and travel at night. To avoid daytime predators, this means they have to spend most of their time underground. It's not ideal for a bird that needs to roam to find food and mates. Being big helps them travel through dense foliage, but it also makes them sluggish. Kakapus have to stop often to pant and cool off. They don't glide through the trees like hummingbirds. They're not exactly graceful. So with all these challenges, it's hard to imagine that they'd evolve to be even bigger. But it seems to be happening. Since the 1990s, kakapo numbers have slowly increased thanks to captive breeding programs. The oldest living kakapo is 97 years old. It's unclear if any other animal has lived that long. In the wild, they have a life expectancy of about 60 years. As far as giant flightless birds go, they're doing okay. There are 244 left. Each one is named and monitored. In 2009, one kakapo named Sirocco tried to mate with a zoologist's head. He kept trying to mount her until she put on a helmet to cover her face. This led to all future kakapo matings taking place with a condom-like device. The kakapo is just one of the weird animals on New Zealand. Let's look at a couple of others. First is the moa. The moa was a large flightless bird that evolved from ancestors related to the kiwi. They lived between 23 million and 1,300 years ago. The last moa died sometime after humans arrived in New Zealand, hunting them for food. The remains of moa were found in caves and archaeological sites, suggesting that the Mbori people specifically sought them out as a meal. The remains of humans were also found in caves alongside moa bones. Sometimes it's a bird or bust. The Haast eagle once soared through New Zealand's skies. It was the largest eagle that ever lived, measuring up to 18 kilos and had a wingspan of 3 meters. These eagles had huge talons capable of crushing moa bones. They dove at speeds of up to 80 miles per hour to catch their prey. The eagle's ancestors flew over from Australia, where they still live today. They evolved into New Zealand's skies. Once they had enough size, they wouldn't need to fly anymore. They had arrived in a land with no predators and no competition for food. They were the kings of the sky. The eagle is just another animal in New Zealand that became a victim of human arrival. Within a century, both the Haast eagle and moa went extinct. Another strange creature is the tuatara. This is a type of reptile that's closely related to the tuatara. It's a lizard that looks like a mix between a crocodile and a turtle. They're known for having a third eye on top of their heads. Now, this extra eye is covered by a scale and functions as a photoreceptor. Tuataras don't see with this eye.
Oh, instead?
It registers light intensity and allows the animal to regulate its temperature. If you want to hear more about strange creatures, check out our series Extinct Bones. One episode focuses on the giant Galapagos tortoises. Another episode is all about the Madagascar hyena. What about you? Have you ever been to New Zealand? What's your favorite strange animal? Let us know in the comments below. And thanks for watching.